This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you, Imran.
No problem. One second before start. You guys can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Hold on.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. So up till now, we have covered requirements, types of requirements, gathering types of requirement gathering techniques, 2 or 3 different methodologies through which softwares are being developed, and then documentation. There are 2 different ways. When I told you about your requirement gathering technique, I was using a word called use case analysis, if you remember. And somebody asked me a question, how, I think Arjun asked me a question, how we would be able to create these diagrams. These are technical diagrams. I said there's one method of creating diagrams and showing your business users and IT team that this is what we are perceiving, and by looking at it toward the process flows, if they can provide some inputs, that is very helpful. Also, one of the most used methods in requirement gathering. And then second place where your use cases or these diagrams are going to be used is your documentation. As you have seen in my Barclays documentation, I was posting snapshots because we had new softwares and we had a UI UX person who was designing those screens for me, and I was simply pasting them down on my FRD. Now let's suppose I don't have any UI UX design person. Let's suppose the application design kind of already exists and we are making some enhancements or we are re-engineering the process. So in that case, I would be not using the screen mockups. I would be rather using process flows, use case diagrams, activity diagrams, workflow diagrams. And the reason of using these diagrams is because your development team, because when you're writing your documentation, now your document, the functional documents, either they are FRDs, or if you're in Azure environment, either they are user stories, whatever functional documents you're writing. With those documents, you have to provide sometimes supporting material, supporting documents, and it is not mandatory. It is something optional. It is something which your development team can request you. So in these cases, you being a good BA, you should be able to provide these mockups and screen flows and process flows and all that. So that is the second place where you use these diagrams. Why? Because development team rather understand better by looking at certain things than reading it. Visualization is something. Sorry.
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Yes.
When you began, you talked about us discussing about 2 or 3 methods of software development. Did we not talk about only 2, waterfall and agile?
Within Agile, we further discussed Agile Scrum, Agile Kanban, Agile XP.
Okay. Subcategory of Agile.
Subcategories, correct. There's another method. I will be covering that after this UML, because first I had to explain you what is use cases, because third method is based on utilizing these diagrams, mainly focusing on these diagrams.
Just wanted
so that
to
is why I
clear
didn't cover that, because I wanted to first give you know-how about how these diagrams are created, and then I'll be covering that method as well. But eventually, as I said before, that this method is not being used pretty much anywhere.
Okay.
There are certain tools which are being used, which basically were created for that method by IBM. So that method is also from IBM, International Business Machine, the computers you use. IBM came up with this method, the third approach which I'm talking about, and they came up with tools as well. Rather than using Jira, there were some rational tools which were designed by IBM, and still companies are using those tools sometime, and they are following waterfall. So to understand that, I just would like to give you a high level idea about that method and then what tools they use. But before that, we're gonna cover this. So unified modeling language is a technique which is very common and very commonly used technique in your software development lifecycle. Most places you will see this happening. In most places you might have to come up with one of these diagrams. There are around 13 different diagrams, but commonly used diagrams are three. This UML is made of two things, OOA and OOM. OOA is your object oriented architecture, and OOM is your object oriented modeling. So that means the software,
Excuse me, is everyone able to hear? Because
Yes.
I don't know, is it only me who is not able to hear it clearly, or it's it everyone?
Is it clear for everyone else?
I can hear you
Yes.
clearly.
We
I
can
can
hear
hear
you.
you.
Reshma, can you please log in back
Okay,
again?
then.
No, I
Anyway,
can
it's
hear
being
you
recorded.
clearly.
No, it's me, Radhika here.
Oh, Radhika,
I'll
okay.
try and do. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Imran, can you tell again what is OOM object?
No, I was on mute. Okay.
Mhm.
Is it clear now?
Yes, it's clear. What is OOM? Object
Yeah.
versus
So OOM is,
Yes, I can.
object oriented modeling. So OOM is object oriented modeling. That means all these diagrams are made of objects. And for those objects, there are certain type of notations, symbols, and the software which you are going to use while creating UML diagrams or any process flow diagram in your official environment, it is going to be Microsoft Visio. And I'm sure most of you must have heard about it. If you are not able to download, or if you don't have Microsoft Visio, you can simply go and create an account on Lucid Charts. It is a 4 to 7 day trial version free. Simply have to just put your email ID and it will create your account and you can use that software. I will show you after this class as well. It's a very basic use. So there are 13 different diagrams approximately. The most commonly used diagrams are going to be 80% of the time you will be seeing use case diagrams. Then around 10 to 15% you will be seeing activity diagrams. And then in some cases you'll be seeing sequence diagram. Every diagram have its own symbols. We call them notations. And those symbols, you simply have to drag and drop that into the page, and then you can connect the dots and then you can design. But I'm gonna design use cases and sequence diagram for you today. There's the example of it. Actually, it is very basic diagram, and I believe most of you must have drawn it somewhere. I can send you some reading material as well on all these. Now, talking about use case diagram, and that is the only diagram which is called, rather than calling it a diagram, they say use case analysis. Reason is this diagram is not just a diagram, it also comes with its own description template. Mostly you don't need to utilize that template. As you're writing user stories, you can simply attach your use case diagram with it. If you're writing FRD, you can simply attach these diagrams to your FRD. In some cases, if they ask you, we want separate use case diagram, and for every use case diagram, we need the template as well, where you have to explain how this interaction is working. So use case analysis is going to have one thing is diagram and other thing as description. Pretty similar template as you have in user story, pretty much same concept as user story. Now there's a confusion sometimes, people they mix use cases and user stories, not in reality, but when they are talking about it. For instance, if somebody I'm asking about agile process, they'll say, oh, so we created use cases. Instead of saying it a user story, they say use cases, even though both these things are same. A use case mean how a function is going to work, a user story mean a function. User story mean a user's point of view, what they want, and use case is basically showing how this function will be executed, how this function will be used. So they are both in terms of meaning are same, but when you're talking about in your interviews, when you're sitting in front of an interviewer, at that point of time you don't need to mix them up. Somebody asks you what is the difference between a user story and a use case, you simply have to say a user story is a user statement, how the function they want, how the function should work, or what function they want. And use case is basically a pictorial view or a diagram for that particular function, how that function will be executed. Use cases basically generally are your diagrams, and user stories basically they turn into documentation. So user story will change into a document, use case basically will turn into a diagram, even though the basic meaning of both is pretty much same. It's just the one is functionality and other is the execution, showing how that will be executed. So when you're drawing a diagram of use case, you have
the screen a bit. I was writing down. I'm done.
okay. And sometimes people, when they are talking about use cases, they usually say user cases. Why? Because they are mixing user stories with it. It's again, as I said, most people know what it is, but they just mix the wording. So don't say user cases. Okay, user is user story, use case. Now, when you're drawing diagram, you have a tool called Microsoft Visio or Lucid Chart. On the left control panel, you will see there are notations. Okay, stick figure. This is the notation for representing a use case. This is the notation for representing association. This is the use case. This is the notation for showing option include, function include. This is the notation for showing function extend. And this is the function for showing generalization. So these are pretty much all the notations which you will have on your left panel, and you can simply drag them and drop them in this property. And there would be one more notation that is called system boundary. System boundary, that is basically application boundary. So first thing you are going to do is, in any use case diagram, first step is you are going to identify use case, which use case you are going to work on, which use case diagram you are going to draw. So first of all, you have to identify a function. So let's suppose I think Reshma's user story was registration. Okay, so for instance, that a person want to register on Facebook, so how that function is going to be shown using this diagram that we can cover, or I can give you another example of a ATM machine or a bank application. So let's take a bank application. So first of all, identifying a use case mean identify a function you're going to work on. Before drawing that use case, you need to drag and drop a system boundary. Let's suppose this is Chase mobile application or Chase online application. This is the first step that you're going to draw a system boundary. So drag it from here and drop it here. Now, first step, actual step is identify a use case. What functions you are going to draw. So let's take 3 to 4 functions we can draw in one diagram. Usually people, what they do is if the functions are small, they can draw it in one diagram, or otherwise you can draw a separate diagram for every single function. Okay, so I'm gonna do login, first use case, check balance, second use case, transfer funds, third use case. So we are going to draw 3 functions in one diagram. So we identify the use cases. The second step is identify who are going to be the actors on it, who is going to execute it and who is going to respond to it. There are going to be 2 types of actors in your diagram. One is going to be called your primary actor, and then other one is going to be called your secondary actor. Primary actor is the main user, the one who is going to execute these functions. So basically Chase Bank account holder is going to be your primary actor, and we just simply drag it from this left tab panel and throw it here. So this is going to be your Chase Bank account holder, or the application who is running the application. That is the person who is going to be called your primary actor. Now there is going to be a secondary actor as well. Any idea what is a secondary actor and what is the responsibility of a secondary actor?
Is it the system?
So system or the bank itself. In most cases, when there are going to be the secondary actors who are going to be inhuman, they are not going to be human actors. They are going to be systems and softwares. For instance, when you're using Amazon and if you're going to buy certain products, when you're adding that product into cart, there is going to be a vendor system which is going to verify if that product is available in the inventory or not. If it is not available, they'll let you know this is out of stock. Okay. For instance, another option in Facebook is when you're basically putting down your bank details, your account number, your card number, debit card number. There's going to be a system from the bank side as well, a bank server, which is going to verify if you have enough funds or if you have entered the valid information about your credit card or debit card, and then return your message if it is successful or not. So in this Chase application, bank is going to be the secondary actor, or bank server is going to be the secondary actor, which is going to be interacting in certain areas, not in every single use case that the secondary actor is going to interact, but secondary actor should be interacting with at least one of the use case. So Chase Bank is a Chase account holder is the primary actor, and then the bank is your secondary actor. That is your second step. So we identified primary and secondary actors. So primary actors are going to be on the left side. Secondary actors are always going to be on the right side. Okay. Now the third step is associate actors to use cases. Associate means create a link. What the sector can do. So association is just a straight line. So you're going to draw a straight line from actor to login, that this actor can log in, this actor also can check balance, and this actor can also transfer funds. This is the association. That is your third step, and there are going to be four different types of relationship in a use case diagram. Types of relationship are going to be, one is going to be called association. Number 2 is going to be called include. Number 3 is going to be called extend. And number 4 is going to be called generalization. These are relationships or linkage which you are going to have 4 different types of relationship: association, include, extend, and generalization. Now, if I show this diagram to my developer and tell him that I've created a use case, he will laugh at me. He will say, what is it? Okay, I can see that this person can log in, this person can check balance as well as transfer fund, but how? The idea here is that I want to show my developer how these functions are going to be processed. What is going to be step-by-step approach by utilizing these relationships. I'm going to show my development team how this function or set of these functions will work. So when you're logging in, okay, of course there are these steps which you already know, that when you log in you have to enter your email ID, you have to enter your password. So let's skip that. Anyway, those steps are already there, we already know them. What we do is, whenever you execute one use case, it is going to generate further more steps. Certain steps are going to be mandatory and certain steps are going to be optional. For example, what are the mandatory steps? Can anyone tell me when you're logging in what is needed?
Username and password.
Enter email ID, enter your password. Okay, what else happens within this process?
Forget password.
Okay, forget password.
Incorrect
What
password or user ID.
I'm sorry.
Incorrect password or user ID.
Now you are not going to do that step. That is something system is going to verify. So that means that is
Okay.
another function of login. So that is simply we can keep verify, but you need to, so system is going to verify.
Okay.
Okay. And then there's another thing which can happen in this process is display error. If somebody is entering wrong details, then display error message will also be shown. So within login, Chase Bank application have 5 processes. All these processes are not mandatory. All these processes don't need to happen. Your display error might not happen. Verification is always going to happen. So anything which is must, anything which is mandatory, for instance, entering your user ID is mandatory. So we are going to show this as an include relationship, and this arrow is going to be dotted. Sorry, so this arrow is going to be dotted arrow, and arrow will always face toward the mandatory step, showing that this is important to achieve login. So any step, any sub use case, sub function within your main function which is necessary to execute, that is going to be called your include relationship. So this login have I include relationship with enter password as well. So we will draw dotted arrow and we'll show password is important and we'll write down include on top of it. Forget password is not mandatory, it will not always needed. In certain cases it is going to be, in most cases it is not going to be. So that is going to be called your extend relationship. System is always going to verify. There is no point it is not going to verify, so it is always going to be a include use case. And display error, sometime it will happen, sometime it will not happen, so it is going to be called as extend relationship. For example, when you sneeze, what happens? You close your eyes. That is mandatory. So with sneezing, closing eye is a include use case, included relation. You may or you may not say God bless you, another person who's sitting in front of you. They may or they may not say God bless you. So that is an extend relationship. It's a general example. So login have these 5 steps which I am showing through different types of relationship, 2 different type mainly, include and extend relationship. Any question on this? Until now, bank don't have to intervene in this use case. Reason being that login function is within system itself. It have nothing to do with the bank. Login is within the application. Application is not going to reach out to bank until now. If they want to check balance, then when they are checking balance, when the verification process is going, verify sufficient funds. This is an include use case for check balance, and bank is going to have a straight line to it, that is the association. The same association you have from actor going into use cases. There is not going to be any arrow, a straight line. Bank is always going to verify fund whenever you are checking balance. That is the include function for this use case, and bank is going to verify it. So that is an example. Now, for instance, let's take, I'm not.
Imran, I have a question
Dotted
here.
line, right?
Yes. Go ahead.
Imran, sorry. Go ahead, Reshma.
To ask that verify sufficient funds, that is an include one, so it would be a dotted line, right, or straight line?
Reshma, your voice is too low. Can you repeat it again?
The verify sufficient funds, which you told, is an include relationship, so that would be a dotted line, right?
Oh, dotted line, of course. Sorry, it's just in a hurry or rush, so I do it. Of course, it's going
Okay,
to be included line. If you
okay.
see, I'll just, so association straight line, include dotted line, arrow facing toward the included use case, extend dotted line, but arrow will face back toward the main use case. That main use case is important. That sub function is not important, and generalization is going to be this. I draw it here as well. If you see here.
Yes, I got it, but then you drew a straight
No,
line.
that's good. Thank you for correcting. So dotted line. Okay. Now we've shown three types of relationship: association, include, and extend. But there's another, relationship which can exist in use cases, and that is generalization. What is generalization? So now, if one person is transferring fund, when they're going to transfer fund, before they do anything, before they input any amount, the person whom they are transferring fund, the first question which bank will ask you is it going to be from a checking account or saving account? Same way when you're posting picture on Facebook. For instance, let's create a use case called post Facebook picture. Okay, we have a system boundary. We have an account holder on Facebook. He can post picture. When he's posting picture, there is going to be a generalization on three bases. Do you want to post picture from your album, from your camera, or from your existing Facebook album, mean phone album, an existing Facebook? Okay, and then this is called generalization. So this relationship is known generalization. Now from here further, if let's suppose you're using camera, then what are the use cases which are going to generate sub use cases? So when you're taking it through camera, you have to open your camera. That is an include use case. Again, dotted line, pardon me on this. Okay, you can also have filtered in your camera before taking picture. That is dotted line back toward use case camera, because it is an extend option, it is optional. Okay, and then you click. That is again dotted line, and that is an include use case. Before that, we have a generalization. So these are all three relationships, four different types of relationships which can exist. Now the best approach is, just to show you how complicated it can become, I draw three use cases. But the best approach is take every use case as a separate system boundary and draw it all together. So we'll simply take one use case in one diagram, and we will draw the complete steps. So for instance, you are adding product to cart. and that is Amazon application. So when you're adding product to cart, before you need to add product to cart, what are the steps which are going to happen? What are the sub use cases which are going to be generated? So for instance, you need to select product,
Size,
quantity,
color,
sorry,
size, color,
size,
color.
color, what else?
Mm,
You can also add it to favorites,
yep.
but that is optional, so it is going to be extend. Anything else comes in mind? And there's going to be a main use case called verify if product is available, and that function is going to be always an included use case, but there is going to be a secondary actor, which is, let's suppose, a warehouse vendor or a vendor who's selling this. He is going to be linked to this use case to verify if the product is available. He will be also attaching it to color as well, having association with the color if he can provide this color, size as well if he can provide that size, and add to favorites he don't need to. So this is how you
So
can
the
draw
vendor,
your
sorry, question. So the vendor is a secondary actor. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
Now, these vendors are not setting themselves. They have softwares, inventory softwares, where Amazon reach out to those inventory software, and these softwares will automatically verify if they have this inventory or not.
So, Imran, I have a question. Like when verification is done, even in this example and the example above, is it not going to ask the system to verify the password? And that would be that verification is done by a secondary actor.
No. When it is login verification, it is always going to be within system. If you see this login and there is a verification, I am not connecting it to bank or anyone else. This is happening within your application, so application need to revert back to you. But when it is a verification about a product, if that product is available or not available, that only can be verified through this person, which is your vendor or the person who's holding this inventory or holding this product, or the actual seller. But in login cases, verification is always going to stay within the system. It have nothing to do with secondary actors. Clear? Or you
Sorry.
still confused?
Yeah, because
Go
I
ahead.
was thinking that for verification, it's going to go to a database and see whether that username and password. So database is going to be another system. That's what my
So every application you are going to use, the main functionality or the most important functionality it is going to have is called authentication criteria, login criteria, and it is always going to keep it within its own boundaries. Application will store your information first time, whatever password and email ID you have provided, and whenever next time you're entering that password, email ID, that is going to still be verified within the system. Bank or the servers or the secondary actors, they have no control over your authentication, because that is your own privacy. Privacy is the most important factor whenever you're designing applications. So in these cases, login or any authentication within any application, that will always stay within the boundaries of application. You are not going to, or system is not going to reach out to your bank to verify if this person have provided the right and valid information or valid credential, because system or the application have already captured it and it have already stored it, and due to privacy purposes reasons, it is not going to reach out to any other servers, only
Not
its
all,
own server.
but not all applications work like that, because I know of a bank that allows you do a password, and also you have a token where you press something like a small calculator like HSBC. At HSBC, you generate a token every time you're logging in addition to the password that you're putting in. So the bank
So
is providing a
that
random
is
number.
a very good example, and this I'm also facing, and it is very irritating. In Pakistan, I've opened an account with a bank called JS Bank. For first 2-3 months, they were not having this function. I was only logging in and everything, all the verifications were being done within the application itself. Now they have changed the policy due to some security issues. Now you will receive a text message on your phone number. Exactly. And you have to enter that code after even putting thumb impression or face identification and all those things. A text message is generated which comes to your phone, and you have to use that code to re-log in. So there are 2 steps to log in, and I actually made a call to my bank and I asked them, can I take this out, because I still want verification process to be done within my application itself. They said, no sir, nope, we cannot take it out. And then I found out they are charging for it. That is a separate service which they're offering to everyone. It is a mandatory service, but they're still charging for it. There's a yearly fees on it. So there could be different examples. Now this is a good example. If that is the case, let's suppose there is an auto generated message that is needed, and then you need a code from that message and you need to enter that code into your application. In that case, this whole use case will change. So instead of having this display form verification, we'll have one more use case, and that is going to be enter code sent by your bank server, and now your bank will be directly associated with it. Make sense?
Yep, got it.
Okay, but not in most cases it won't happen, but yes, it's a very good example. So that keep in mind, if that kind of a thing is there, then again bank is going to be, or your third party server is going to be the one who is going to be associated with this function as well. And that is going to be called again as included use case, because it is mandatory that once you, and it is very problematic. Let me tell you why. Because sometimes your phone's signals are low or something is happening. Maybe you're using Wi-Fi, and on Wi-Fi you can use your any mobile applications, but your phone service is weak. Now if your phone service is weak, you will not receive message. And that happened with me, that I did not receive message. Maybe after 30-40 minutes I got a pop-out that this is a code that you need to enter, and by that time I was, no, I'm not going to use it, because I needed to use it, and then they're not sending me message, so that means I cannot log in. So it is not a good feature to have in cases if your phone service is weak. Then what if person is not receiving that text? Okay, so this is the use case diagram. You are going to draw 2 diagrams on 2 user stories you have selected to write down user story specification documents. I want you to attach 2 use case diagrams. Draw for one each. You can use Lucid Chart. Simply, if you have Microsoft Visio, then please use Microsoft Visio, because this is the tool you're going to use professionally. When you go into Microsoft Visio, you will have different types of diagrams types, and you can simply go into business diagrams, business orientation diagrams, or there would be a specific name, UML diagrams. Once you click on that, then further UML diagrams will open up, and then you can simply click on use cases, and then you will see these notations, these symbols will be on your left panel, and you can simply drag them, drop them, connect the dots, and then draw the picture. Any question on use case diagram?
What was the assignment again?
So for 2 user stories for which you're writing user story specification documents, for same 2 tickets, I want you to create 2 diagrams and attach back to them to Jira tickets.
Okay. 2 diagrams.
Anyone have any confusion on it? Assignment or use case itself? It's very simple.
Imran, can we do that on Visio and attach it somehow, or do we just create a Word document and attach it to Jira?
So either Visio, you can create a Word document, or you can, I think you can still find notation on Word or PowerPoint as well. But the best tool, if you don't have Visio, please download or go to lucidcharts.com. They will give you 7 to 10 day free trial version. You simply have to input your email ID, nothing else. Okay, so Lucid Charts, and I want this assignment to be done by Wednesday. So you have 2 days. Lucid chart. Now, the second part of this diagram, which I told you is a descriptive part, which is going to be only explaining this diagram, which is not needed in many cases. If you're having your FRD created in waterfall environment, for every single functional requirement, you can attach the use cases. You don't need description. If you are working on Azure environment with your user story tickets, with your user story specification documents, you can take these attachments. You can also attach your use case diagrams as well, or any diagram you have. Some cases, very rare cases, your developer is requesting you that can you draw a use case diagram, and also please use the description as well. Write down the description specifically in the use case template. Then in those cases, you have to describe this interaction which you just created. You have to describe that interaction, and the template of your use case description is 80% same as your user story specification document. For instance, if I want to create description, then use case ID, let's suppose 01, use
Imran,
case name, yes.
but in Agile, we always have to do that, right?
I'm sorry.
In Agile environment, we always have to do that, right?
No, you don't have to do it. In Agile environment, you're having user story specification document. That is more than enough. With that, you can attach this diagram.
Okay.
This description is not needed. It's just coming. It is part of this diagram. Some cases only. Your developers can request you to write down this diagram into a description as well. In that case only you have to do it. Otherwise, you already have a user story specification document which is explaining them how this function is working. Already it is explaining them. Same way in your FRD, when you're writing down your functional requirement, starting from login till logout, every single function requirement you already have written it. You already have explained the process. Simply attach the diagram. Okay, I'm just showing you. If in your interview somebody asks you, and that is a very general question, somebody can ask you, can you tell me what is a use case analysis? And then you have to say use case analysis basically is a method used for either explaining and analyzing requirements, or when you're writing down documentation for development team, you have to use use cases to, you have to draw use cases to show the functionality to the development team in a pictorial manner, in a diagram way. And there's another part of use case analysis that is called use case description. Now, if a person asks you, how do you write use case description? In those cases, you have to, in those situations, you have to know how to write use case description. Even though you are not going to write it in your actual working environment, but you still need to know how use case description is written. The use case ID 01, use case name, login to Facebook. I'm going to take a very simple function. Use case will have its description, short description as well, which is similarly as your user story. As an account holder, I want to log into Facebook. Trigger. What is a trigger? Trigger is something which have initiated this use case, something which happened before this use case. So trigger could be you launched Facebook. So that was a trigger, and now you want to log in. In Amazon, let's suppose if you're buying a product, you're adding it to cart. Before that anything happened, of course you search for product, you viewed the product. So that is the trigger. Before this function is going to happen, before this use case is going to be executed, what has initiated it, what has triggered it? So here is the trigger is basically somebody who's the actor who launched Facebook. Now they want to log in. So that is a trigger. Actor.
So how should we answer that?
Mostly
What?
you will leave it blank. Mostly you will leave it blank. Your development team can enter it. Otherwise, if you know what was the previous function, okay, which triggered this function, for example, adding your card information, what triggered it? Because you want to make payment. So making payment is the trigger. Now that is the reason you're entering your card information.
from the interview perspective, how do we explain or how do we answer that question?
Trigger, if somebody asks you what is a trigger,
Correct.
or somebody asks you what is a description.
No, what's a trigger?
So in interview perspective, if somebody asks you what is a trigger, you simply say a trigger could be any event which happened before your actual use case or actual function.
So a trigger is a prompt.
Yes, prompt or event which basically occurred, and that is the reason now you are basically going to do or execute this function.
Got it.
Okay.
Good.
Gun have a
Thank you.
trigger. Okay, when you shoot a gun, before that there's a trigger which you have to press. Only then you can shoot someone.
That's a good example.
Okay. Account, wow, oh my God. So you think gun example is a good example? You're supporting Donald Trump? Who are you voting?
No, I always support him, but not in this event. But trigger is easy to remember.
Not in Second Amendment.
Uh-huh.
You're not supporting him in Second Amendment because he focuses always on Second Amendment, stating that it is our right to hold and carry guns.
Correct. Not in that. Yeah.
Not in that.
Yeah. But I was trying to say it's a good example in terms of remembering trigger.
Yeah, that is indeed. Outcome, you don't need outcome because we are using another word here, post condition.
Using both pre and post, or?
Yeah, main flow, alternative flow, and exceptional flow. Now these words might look a bit tough and confusing, but they're not. So actor is account holder. Preconditions, same thing. You have precondition in your user story, prerequisites in user stories. Precondition is something which must be there to execute this. So one precondition is you must have internet to log in, and you must have valid account with valid credentials. Post condition is nothing but the outcome or success scenario you are expecting out of this function. So what is the success scenario? That user should be able to log in. So that is my post condition. I'm telling after meeting all the criterias, the post condition should be that user should be able to execute whatever they want to do. Main flow are the steps exactly same as your acceptance criteria. When you are writing acceptance criteria for your user stories, what are the steps which are needed to execute that function? Same are the steps here. So for instance, number one step is enter email ID. Number two step is enter password. Number three step is click on login. So this is what the main flow is. And then there is another part within login. As I mentioned, there are going to be some optional steps. We are going to show those optional steps as using word can. Users can click on remember me. Users can also click on keep me logged in. Okay, these are two separate functions which comes with your Facebook login. And so with anything which is mandatory, you are going to use word must. And anything which is optional, and this is now I'm showing include relationship, and with word can I'm using extend relationship. I'm showing extend relationship, and with word must I'm showing include relationship. So using your word is basically you're telling your developer this is important, this is mandatory, and this is not mandatory, this is just an optional field. But that doesn't mean we should skip it. If I'm skipping it, I'm not writing click keep me logged in, he or she is not going to develop this function. Your users will not have keep me logged in. So make sure either it is an optional step or a mandatory step. You must put down every single detail in your main flow or in your acceptance criteria of user stories. Whenever you're defining your requirements, please make sure every single sub functionality, every single feature or sub feature, that must be written within your statements by utilizing words must and can. Alternative flow. Can anyone tell me what is going to be an alternative flow in login? Example of an alternative flow.
Forget password?
Your fingerprint.
Forgot password,
Okay.
invalid email ID, password. So whenever there is going to be something which is not right in your main flow, due to that you must be provided an alternative flow. Now your system should not throw you out, it should give you an option. For example, and you must have faced the situation maybe back in 5 years back or 4 years back, when every application used to be like, for instance, I'm on Amazon, I have searched product, I have selected product, I've added it into cart, I've put down my email ID, address, every single information. Now I'm putting my account details, my debit card details. Let's suppose in my CVV number, I missed one, or I enter a wrong CVV number, and now I'm submitting the page and I click submit. You will see every single information is deleted and you have to redo everything. But nowadays, by providing an alternative flow to users, only the area, let's suppose if it is CVV, that will be highlighted with red or asterisk, showing that please go back and fill your CVV number again. Every other text you enter, that should stay put. Still, there are certain applications, some websites where you are, college and university websites also, when you're entering your information, you're filling a form, and when you're submitting your form and you get a message back that while submitting form, there's some information was invalid, or maybe you did not put the password criteria. They wanted you to put 8 character with alphanumeric, numeric, and although your password is not right, your criteria is not right, and automatically you will see that the whole page is deleted and you have to re-put the information, which is very hectic. So alternative flow, providing alternative flow in every single function is very important, because it gives flexibility to user, it provides ease to users, that only thing they have to do is wherever they have made mistake in the process, they only have to adjust that process. So in login here, we can only say re-enter your password if somebody have invalid credential, or re-enter your email, or the most you have to do is you have to click on forgot password, which will generate another use case, which will have to you have to answer 4 things, enter your card number or email ID or whatever it is, and then go and check your email, click on that link, come back. So there would be another proper use case diagram for forgot password process. If you are clicking on that, that means you're starting another process. So alternative flow is a flow which is given in every single function, which provides the customer or the actor with ease to fix wherever he or she had made mistake. Clear or not clear?
Clear.
Okay.
I'm good, thank you.
No problem. Exceptional flow. Anyone can give me example what could be an exceptional flow, and the meaning of it is very obvious. Exceptional flow.
So is it like we forgot the password? What is the other way? Alternate exception flow.
That is still an alternative flow. You're still going to be able to redo everything and come back. Alternative flow will always take you back to main flow.
Exception.
This is another question which comes in interview. You
Can
always have to
exception
answer this. Alternative flow will always take you back to the main flow again. It will help you to go back. It will help you to adjust to your mistakes. But exceptional flow will not take you to the main flow. That means your function has ended. You cannot move forward. What does that mean? That means sometime your application completely or certain functions of your application are down. Chase mobile application, every Saturday, Sunday, you will see a message with red statement on your application stating that from this time to this time, you cannot deposit checks or transfer funds, or it says certain functions will not be available because the system is going under maintenance. So whenever you see message like that, that means you went into exceptional flow. For instance, you will see whenever you are opening certain pages, you will see 404 error message. Do you see that sometime?
Yes.
Sometime you will see system under maintenance, please visit after 24 hours. Sometime you see we are moving our application to other instance. These are the exceptional flow. Exceptional flow mean you cannot execute the function due to certain reasons, and the reasons could be maintenance or application has crashed, there is a bug or there's a defect on it. So your development team have to write down the exceptional flow for every single function. If that is not working, then what message are we going to show to our users? So
So the
Chase Bank
exceptional.
development team.
So
So
the
Chase Bank
exceptional.
development team. I'm
Sorry.
sorry, give me 1 second. So Chase Bank
Okay.
development team have kept a message for you on your application, top of your application, with a red statement. Whenever they are having some issues or some maintenance, they always tell you certain functions are not going to work in your application. That means they're telling you that is an exception. We are sorry for that. Clear?
So the exceptional flow is the backup message that the system is
So
not
exceptional flow
available.
is a flow where you cannot reach out, where you cannot execute the function, and there's a message which is given to business or sorry, to the user, that this is the reason you cannot go into it.
Okay.
And development team have a responsibility to show these messages, to pop out these messages every time there is something like that happens. System will automatically generate these messages. I'm not going to write exceptional flow, I'm going to leave it blank. I'm just giving you example. If somebody asks you what are different types of flows in your use case diagram, then you have to say there's a main flow, which is the main criteria, whatever steps which are going to be part of the execution criteria, optional steps or mandatory steps, that we have to write. An alternative flow is a flow which is basically whenever users make a mistake, uh, to reprimand that mistake, system will give him another option, another chance to either refill information, revisit that information and refill it, and your alternative flow will always take you back into the main flow. That is an ease which is created for users. Your information will be stored, your information will be kept saved. Only thing you have to do is wherever you had made mistake, entering CVV number, card number, billing information, zip code information, anything which you have entered which is not right, you will be going into an alternative flow. So an option for the user. And exceptional flow is basically when system is under either maintenance or the function is not working, there's a bug or defect, and system must generate a message for the user. Sorry for inconvenience, we are working on maintenance, page error 404, revisit back, we are moving whatever messages that is basically written by the development team. So you have your use case description template like this. So now I was again tell you, do not confuse yourself in user story and use case. User story is a statement, what user wants. Use case is a diagram, how that function will be approximately executed. Again, as I said, use cases are not mandatory. That doesn't mean that use case should be 100% accurate. Okay, it's just a way to show your developer a high level idea how system is going to work. Yeah, if you're good with your diagrams, if you can break it down to every single level, all the inclusion points, all the extension points, all the generalization, then it is great. But again, even if you have missed something, it's still okay, because with that diagram the actual document has been sent, the user story specification has been sent to them, or FRD has been sent to them, so they can always verify that to the document. They are not only going to see your diagram and start coding it. It's just an optional, it is just an extra thing you are offering them. Is that clear?
So
Mm.
in this use case template, the trigger and the exceptional flow will be added by the developer. Rest everything will be added by the analyst, business analyst.
Yes.
Imran, I have two questions. One is, it's not a question, but I wanted to know what is an instance. You mentioned about an instance. So what is an instance?
Instance is an event here. As I said, when you're entering information of your credit card, when you're checking out, when you're buying some product, anytime you made a mistake, any instance, for instance, you have CVV number entered wrong. Okay, again, instance is not a business language or term I'm using here, or it is not a software language I'm using here. I'm just giving you example. Okay. So whenever you are making a mistake, okay, in filling up the information, and if one of the information is incorrect, for that specific instance or for only that specific box, you have to re-enter your information again. You don't have to go back and redo every single thing. System must offer you that functionality, and that functionality is called alternative flow.
Okay.
So alternate flow is a mechanism that allows you to get back to the main flow.
Exactly.
In cases where
right definition.
It's like another chance.
Another chance. Exactly. So when system offers you another chance to fix that issue, whatever issue you have, whatever mistake you have made, you have to refix it. System will always give you another chance. Radhika, you have another question.
So sometimes we get that I'm not a robot or a CAPTCHA. Is it comes under the alternative flow?
So that is not an alternative flow. That is basically an included function. In most cases, you will now they see that a certain time, and mostly on your laptops or computers, when you're opening websites and you want to register to something, they always want to verify if you're a robot or you're an actual person. So that is not an alternative flow. That is still a part of your main flow. Any application which wants you to verify this information, now you have to put it as an include use case as well. Mostly in banking channels, mostly in financial sector application, that is not going to happen because you already have been authenticated by your department, by your manager. Your access has been granted. They are not going to ask these kind of question. Only in your application which you use on daily basis, that question might pop in. And if that is the function, that is a mandatory function. That is an included use case. That is not an alternative flow.
So a quick question for you. So in cases where, like my Samsung phone, right, I have the option of putting in a password, and then the other option is to use my fingerprint to unlock the screen, right?
Both are included. Both functions are included.
And those are two main flows, right?
These are two main flows. These are generalized. So I told you about generalized option. When some applications give you 3-4 different ways from start itself, like posting picture on Facebook using 3 different channels, camera, album, or your Facebook account, Facebook albums. Same way when you're logging in or when you're opening your phone, iPhone or Samsung Galaxy, they give you 3-4 different instances. They give you either you can log in through your fingerprints, you can log in through your password, or you can log in through your face. So there are 3 generalized use cases. These are generalized use cases. Okay.
Got it.
Okay, so, Radhika, you had another question.
Yeah, that was, I wanted a clarity whether reset password, is it the same as forgot password and it's giving you another option and it comes under alternative flow? Reset password.
Comes under alternative flow because you don't have to reset your password every time, only when you feel it, only when you yourself need it. Let's suppose you feel that my privacy, somebody have it or something fishy is happening with my account, then you want to reset it. So again, it is an optional flow. Sorry, it is an extend use case, not an include use case. When I say when you sneeze, there could be 2 things. The mandatory thing is you're going to close your eyes. Everyone is going to close your eyes. That is include. Now someone can say God bless you or not say God bless you. Same way you feel like changing your password, resetting your password, or you don't feel like resetting your password. So it is up to the user's choice. Anything which is up to user's choice, that is going to be your extended flow. Anything which must happen to execute your main function, any step which is needed, which is must, that is going to be called your included use case.
Okay,
You
thank
don't
you.
have any control on include use case. You must execute include use case. On extend use case, you have control.
Okay, got you. Thank you.
Second, second example, second type of diagram which I'm going to draw for you is called sequence diagram. It shows sequence, what was the sequence of each function. Here you don't see sequence. Here everything is mixed up. Clear? You don't know what time actor is primary actor is using the system, what time secondary actor is using the system, who's interacting at what position. This diagram will never show you. Sequence diagram will show you the sequence of these instances, how these actors are interacting with the system, how system is responding back to them, at what time it is responding back to them. So everything is shown through this sequence diagram. The sequence diagram, basically you won't be using it in many places, but it is good thing to have, at least apart from use cases. You must know any other diagram, either activity or sequence. I'm going to show you sequence. Activity is very simple. You can simply watch the video which I will share with you. So I'm going to show you a simple example of creating a sequence diagram. ATM machine, and you want to withdraw money. Let's draw a sequence diagram of the interaction of your interaction with ATM machine and then ATM interaction with your bank server. Okay, so I'm going to show you these interactions using sequence diagram. So there are 4 parties which are going to be involved. Okay, number 1 is going to be your actor. The second party is going to be, and you want to keep it through a proper sequence. Second party is going to be your ATM machine. Third party is going to be your bank server. Fourth party is going to be your own bank account. There is a difference between server and account. Bank server is for every single user to verify certain things, and bank account is your own personal account from where you want to withdraw money. These are called, actor will never be called an object. All these 3 instances will be called objects. Actor is just an actor. So this actor is going to interact with these 3 objects to withdraw funds. So how we are going to do it? Every single person involved or object involved in it will have its lifeline. And what is a lifeline? Lifeline is a dotted line which shows a breakdown between them. Every object will have its own lifeline, or in other words, its own boundary. And this is always going to be dotted lines. So you have actor, you have ATM, you have bank server, and then you have your bank account. So now what actor is going to do? Can anyone tell me first step what you do?
Insert your debit or
So you are going to insert your debit card. This is going to be called a message. So there are going to be messages and returned message. A message is going to be shown by a straight arrow, no dotted arrow. So on top of this line, you will say that this actor is inserting message. Not message. Inserting your
debit card, ATM
card, and that is called message. So you need to understand message and return message. We started with objects, then you have lifelines. Now all these are notations. In previous diagrams, I showed you notations for actor include, extend, generalization, and association. Here, the notations are going to be called objects, lifeline, message, return message. A message is going to be shown by a straight arrow, and return message is going to be shown by a dotted arrow. It could mostly follow toward left, but in some cases it will always follow toward right side. So when you insert card in your ATM, what is going to happen? Your ATM is going to send a message to your bank server to verify the card, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so still we are having messages. Now we are going to have a return message. Your bank can say, your bank server will say that card is okay.
Valid.
And now a message will be generated. There's no return message now. ATM will send the actor a message. If card is okay, it will say enter your PIN. So you see this message is coming back. It is not coming back. It is the message generated by ATM itself. It is not a response. ATM is not responding you. ATM is generating a message after getting a response back from bank server. It is telling you, it is requesting you to enter your PIN. Now there could be another instance here. What if your card is not valid? If your card is not valid, then what are you going to do? So I am going to show my developer that if card is not valid, I'm going to create an alternative frame.
A rejected card.
Same like alternative flow. The concept is same. So alternative frame will be created, which is a box, and that box will be created on this whole function. So this is a box which says it is an alternative frame. Why? Because let's suppose if your message, or sorry, your card is invalid, then what are you going to do? So we are going to create an alternative frame on it, and then we are going to show to our development team that this is how, if card is not okay, card is not valid, then what is going to happen. So let's suppose if card is not valid, and your alternative frame will have a central line, a dotted central line. It will be broken down into two parts. The top part will be used if everything is okay. If it is not okay, then bottom part will be used. So your box is divided by a dotted line. If everything is good, then the top will say if card is valid. Else mean if card is not valid, then simply a message from ATM will come to you and it will say eject card. But before that, your bank server is telling ATM machine that card is invalid. So within your alternative flow, top box will always be if it is a valid process, and bottom part always will be else if it is not valid. So if it is not valid, the message, returned message, will be shown in this box, and if it is valid, then simply everything will be shown on the top box. Clear or not clear?
Clear.
Okay. Now let's suppose your card is valid.
Give me a second.
Sure.
So what I'm saying here is insert card. The system is going to verify, send, and then you said card okay, and then request PIN. And
Yes.
between this 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, there is a dotted line. And why is it so?
So now I gave you an example. Let's suppose if your card is invalid. Okay. there could be a situation where your card is invalid. Your system should respond to that. So if your card is invalid, you will always put a frame, alternative frame on top of any function where there could be two instances. Let's suppose amount, you're checking your balance or you want to withdraw amount. If amount you already have in your system, then you're simply using the top part of this box. If your amount is not valid or you don't have sufficient funds, your bank server will tell you, then you will be using the bottom part of your alternative frame. So I think this is confusing because I'm not using the space properly. Let me create this diagram again so that you have more clarity on it. Okay.
Thank
So
you,
you
Imran.
no problem. Let me make it a little bit big so that you guys can break it down properly. So let's clear canvas. All right, perfect. So we have actor, we have objects, three objects in this case: ATM machine, bank server, and your bank account. So these are three objects which will be utilized in this function when you want to withdraw money. So we are using withdraw money. That is one function. For the withdraw money function, we are creating a sequence diagram. Clear until here?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, same way you had notations in your use case diagrams, you will have notations in this diagrams as well. And the notations you are going to use is going to be called, number one, objects, which you show them with a box, which I already did here. Number two is lifeline, which is a dotted line coming out of every single actor who's involved, every single participant who's involved, showing their own boundary. Okay. And third thing is going to be called message. That is the interaction. So message means basically something which initiated. And then there is going to be a returned message. Message will be shown with a straight arrow, and return message will be showed with a dotted arrow. It can face any way. These both cases, the messages can face toward any side, any object. And then the fifth thing you're going to show is, in certain functions, when you have alternative flow, you have to show it with an alternative box. So alternative box, we call it alternative frame, and that frame is always going to be divided into half. If the function is smoothly working as per it should work, then everything will be on top of the box. If it is not working as per the expected outcome, then it should be, the message should be in the bottom of the box. Okay, for instance, if your card is valid, the whole valid criteria messages are going to be shown, all those lines are going to be shown in this box. If your card is not valid, then those messages and returned messages are going to be shown on the bottom of the box. Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, now let's start with our first step. So first step was, what actor is going to do? If they want to withdraw money, what is the first step they need to do?
Insert card.
Insert card.
So it will be a message to ATM, a straight line message saying insert your card. And the ATM will send a message to bank server, still a message, so that bank server can verify card. So you see it is on the top. Okay. Bank server, once it verifies, it will send a return message to ATM, and return message will always be with a dotted line saying card okay. Now here the whole thing has stopped. The one inserting card and verification is done. That is one step. Second step is ATM machine is going to generate a message for the actor asking to enter your PIN. Now, when I say in most functions you will have an alternative flow, let's suppose your card is not verified. Your card is invalid. Then how we are going to show that? So while we are going to show anything which is not as per the expectation, we are going to use a box called alternative frame, which will come to the whole function and it will have, so this is not exactly half, but consider it as half because everything which is okay, it is on top. The top half will always have if card is valid, if that function is valid or as per the expectation. And if it is not valid, then we'll use word called else. So let's suppose card is not valid. So now instead of returning this card okay, the message will be shown here. Card not okay or card is invalid. And then ATM machine message will be sent in this box as well saying please eject your card. Does it make sense now or still confusing? Message is a straight line, return message is a dotted line, and if there's an alternative flow in any function, then you are going to show through an alternative frame. Alternative frame will have a dotted line in the center. Bottom of the frame will have if things are not working as per the expectations. Let's suppose if card is not valid, and top will always represent the valid part. Any confusion in it? Guys?
I'm
No,
clear.
Imran, it's clear.
No, it's
Clear?
clear, but it's just, yeah. Do we have to remember the dotted line? Which one is the dotted line in solid line?
Yes, we have to remember. Why we have it is very easy to remember. Whenever there is an interaction, somebody starts the interaction. Okay, the object which starts the interaction, from there the line would be straight, and the object which basically is going to respond to that interaction, the line is going to be dotted. So if you see, insert card is the interaction you started, so it's a straight line. ATM started another further to bank server, it started an interaction that can you verify card for me? So it's still a dotted line, sorry, still a straight line. And when bank server is replying back to your ATM machine if card is okay or not okay, it is a response, and
Got it.
response is always sent through return message, which is shown through a dotted line. And now here the whole interaction has ended. ATM machine is now asking you, it is not a response to you. You inserted card, you didn't do anything, you are not asking anything to ATM. You just inserted the card and card was verified by bank server. Bank server returned result to ATM. Now ATM is initiating another response, so sorry, another message, and that is basically to you stating can you please enter a PIN. Okay, so that is a straight line. Clear? It will come once you do
Yes, got it.
once you do one assignment, it will come to you. Okay, all right. Now we are moving toward the whole, let me explain you the whole sequence diagram. The reason we are doing the sequence diagram is withdraw fund. That is what we want to show. So now let's suppose your PIN is valid, you have entered your PIN was checked, everything is good. Now what are going to be the next steps?
Show existing accounts linked to this card.
I'm sorry.
Show all existing accounts.
No.
No. The
So
options, whether deposit, withdrawal.
Are you not going to enter PIN? ATM is requesting you to enter PIN. Have you entered PIN yet?
No, you did that already, right? When
No, I did not do it.
Okay,
no,
enter the
I
PIN.
didn't. No, so it is requesting me to enter the PIN. I haven't entered the PIN yet.
Okay.
So I'm going to respond back to this ATM. So there is going to be a dotted line toward ATM where I am entering my PIN. So enter my PIN, or PIN has been entered. Okay. The ATM will send a message, straight message to bank server to verify the PIN. And same thing, bank server is sending message back to ATM, PIN is valid. So the next thing it can do to me, the ATM machine, it is going to ask me to request me to start my next function, which is going to be, it is going to give me options. So let's suppose one of the option is request to withdraw money or enter amount you want to. There is going to be another alternative frame on top of this function. Why? Because what if my PIN is invalid? So I'm going to break down this alternative flow into half. If everything is fine, I'm going to use the stop box. Let's suppose the PIN is not valid, so I'm going to use the bottom part, and ATM, a bank server, is responding back to ATM saying PIN is invalid, and ATM machine is going to send me a message to re-enter it, or in some cases, most cases, it will say eject your card.
Imran, I have a question. So
Okay.
when the bank server is sending the message back to the ATM, we see that it's a dotted line because it's a return message.
It's a response.
And it's a response. But when the ATM, like for the eject card, from ATM to the actor, why is that a straight line? Because
So
it is a
ATM
response.
is not responding back to me because I am only entering my PIN after ATM initiated this. So I am the one who is responding to ATM. ATM gives you option. You don't give ATM any option. ATM is the one who's going to show you menu. ATM is the one who's going to ask you to enter PIN. ATM is the one who's going to ask you to either you want to print your statement, you don't want to print your statement, and all that. So mostly in ATM case, you will see ATM is requesting you, it is guiding you what to do.
So
It is not replying to you.
So eject the card. Ejecting the card is a message from the ATM.
ATM, because my PIN is invalid. So I have created two boxes here, because in both cases this can happen. Until now, my bank account is not being touched. I am not touching my bank account. Now my bank account will be interactive. It will have an interaction with bank server, ATM, and all that. So let's suppose the first option is right. The verify PIN and all that thing, it's valid PIN, so it is requesting me to enter amount, and on its request, I am responding back to ATM and I am entering amount, entered amount, or amount has been entered, or amount entered. So now I responded back to ATM and I entered the amount. The ATM is going to reach out to bank server and ask, because it is, whenever it is returning you a message. Now if let's suppose after entering my amount, if ATM requested me something, then it is going to be a returned message. Now it is not talking me back, it is going to further next object. So that means it is again initiating the conversation or initiating the process or step. So it is asking the bank server to start my transaction, and bank server is going to send message to my bank account. Further, because it is not returning back any answer yet, it is further flowing, so still flow would be send message, not returned message. So it is requesting my account to verify if I have sufficient funds, and if funds are okay, I will get a return message, not me, but the server will get a return message saying funds okay, and my bank account would initiate. Now everything will happen in this process, only in my bank account, and my bank account will, I have to do nothing, ATM will have to do nothing. My bank account will say withdraw amount, and now the bank account is responding back to the bank server stating withdrawal successful. ATM is server is sending it to the ATM machine stating transaction is successful, and then ATM machine is asking me, initiating a message, dispense cash, please take out your cash. So that is a complete process withdraw. Now here there's another alternative box I can draw. Why? I might not have sufficient funds. If funds okay, I'm going to use the top part. If fund is not okay, I'm going to say not okay. The message will be dotted line, not okay, and then it will say eject your card. So that is a complete process. And then the sixth and last notation is called activation box, which will be drawn on the instances. For instance, on actor, this is my activation box, that actor was activated for all these functions. ATM was activated for all these steps. Bank server was also activated for all these steps, and bank account was only activated on these steps. So these are activation box showing how much interaction each object is doing in this process of withdrawing funds.
Quick
So this
question.
is the activation for bank server and ATM machine.
Quick question.
Yes.
What if the ATM user has exceeded his balance, his limit for the day? Where would
Okay,
that
then
fall?
simply, this is simply here, instead of asking sufficient funds, we can have another process,
Step. Okay.
verify limit, daily dispense limit. And then once it verifies, it says, let's suppose the daily limit has been exceeded, we will have a dotted message and say transaction is not successful, please eject your card. There could be multiple ways.
Got it.
But this is the one simple example. Again, guys, in 99% of your project, you won't be doing it. But it is very good to know. It is very simple to know. Believe me, it is very easy to know. Anyway, I'm going to send you some videos also to watch on that. You can also Google and YouTube video on sequence use cases, very simple, and that is generally going to be used. Use case is going to be used. Now I'm going to add it to this assignment if you feel, and one more thing, not every project you can draw a sequence diagram. Most projects you will draw use cases. Sequence diagram can only be drawn in certain applications where you want to show sequence and there is certain objects which are interacting with each other. So now I don't know if you have a mobile application, then you can have a sequence diagram, but if you have any other, maybe you might not create a sequence diagram. But anyway, if you can pick up one function and draw a simplest of sequence diagram for me, that will be great. If you don't want to, it's totally fine, you can simply read about it. But only thing you need to know is there are notations, objects, lifeline, message, return message, alternative frame, and activation line. These are all the notations which will be used plus your actor. Okay. For interview, it is good to know it. Somebody asks you how many UML diagrams you can draw off. You can simply say mostly I've drawn use case diagrams. In certain cases, I was also drawing sequence diagrams and activity diagrams. Now, if somebody asks you, what is all these three? Can you explain me? You can simply explain them. Sequence diagrams shows the sequence, how objects are going to interact with each other within the system through messages and return messages and alternative frames. Or somebody asks you, can you tell me notations of each diagram? You can simply say notations are these. Activity diagram is very simple: start, stop, all those boxes. I think pretty much every one of you have drawn these diagrams, simple process flow diagrams. You can watch a video on that as well. So these are two diagrams on which I want your assignments. Use cases mandatory must. This one is optional. If you can do it, fine. Can't do it, still totally fine. But anyhow, know about these notations: objects, lifeline, message, returned message, alternative frame, and this activation box. Any question on this?
Imran, the sequence diagram is also like we can do it with Microsoft Visio.
Most you are going to use Lucid Chart or Microsoft Visio, or if somebody can simply draw it on a piece of paper, take a picture of it, attach it to your user story, that will do.
Okay.
Pen and paper is fine too. You will see when you're working in professional life, first of all, you have to draw it rough on your pen and paper. You will go to developer, you will show it to him. This is what I'm perceiving. If he says yes, this is what I'm looking for, go back, put it in Visio or Lucid Chart, take a page, take a copy, and then attach it. But initially, you will always draw it on your page, copy, notebook, whatever you have.
Thank you.
First, your rough sketch, and then you can change it into software.
Okay.
All right, so this is our today's lecture. I'm going to stop recording here. I will send you this